What is up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're getting into my November 21st NCAA Tournament Bracketology Predictions. This is the third one, I believe. Yep. So let's get into this here. Another week of college basketball, another crazy week here. Looking at the bracket watch, top overall seed is the Jayhawks. They replaced Purdue, had a very impressive win against Duke this week. First team out, we have Texas Tech, and then the last team in, the Xavier Musketeers right there. And then if we look at the bubble here, last four buys, Northwestern, a good program out of the Big Ten. Providence, BYU, the Cougars are officially in, my BYU Cougars, into this field. And then Ohio State's the last team out of these last four in. We have Indiana right there dropping into this last four in. Nevada, who's new up here, Michigan, and Xavier. First four out, we have Texas Tech, Iowa, Boise State drops out, Oklahoma. Then the next four out, St. John's have dropped out. St. Mary's have slipped all the way down here to the next four out. NC State and New Mexico is hanging on here. But still lots of season to go, so this list, I'm sure, is going to shake up. But let's look at the 68 bracket here. Starting out with here, as I mentioned, of Indiana dropping down to that. Nevada's new to the field. I was wondering, interesting that these two are playing as the 10 seed. I don't really know why that's happening. And then these teams that made it were a 11 seed, like BYU, Ohio State, I believe, are 11 seeds, which was a little bit weird, but I guess, I don't know. I guess that's how it's set up. But 11 seed Michigan dropping down, and then Xavier new to the field here. In the South region, we have the 8-seeded UCLA dropping down there. Kansas, obviously the number 1 overall seed. San Diego State jumping up to a 5 seed. Bradley new to the field at a 12 seed. Miami jumping up to a 4 seed. And then Grand Canyon dropping down to a 13 seed. We have Providence new to the field at an 11 seed. UNC Wilmington new to the field at a 14 seed. Florida Atlantic, they have not started out their season how they would want to. They've dropped all the way down to a 7 seed. Right there, a big drop. And then in the Midwest region, we have Purdue switching with Kansas there as the 1 seed. Oregon's going to be jumping up to an 8 seed. USC dropping down to a 5 seed, as well as James Madison jumping up to a 12 seed. Auburn going to be jumping up to a 6 seed there. Arkansas dropping down to a 7 seed after being, I believe, a 4 seed or maybe a 5 seed last week. That's not great. And then Ohio State jumping up to a 10 seed, and Eastern Kentucky dropping down to a 15 seed. So, yeah, Ohio State's a 10 seed, but then you look at BYU, and they are an 11 seed. I don't really know why that makes sense, but I guess that's how Lundardi wanted to put it. And then in the East region here, we have Tennessee as the number 1 seed there. Iona dropping down to a 16 seed. Kansas State jumping up to a 9 seed. Mississippi State jumping up to a 6 seed. And then, of course, BYU new to the field. And then Florida jumping up to a 10 seed. West region here, Arizona, the number 1 seed in the Salt Lake City right there. TCU dropping down to an 8 seed. Clemson jumping up to a 9 seed. Yale going to be dropping down to a 12 seed. UNC Greensboro is going to be new to the field at a 13 seed. Colorado jumping up to a 6 seed. Dayton going to be jumping up to an 11 seed. Weber State jumping up to a 14 seed. And then Villanova dropping down to a 7 seed. All right, so let's get into this bracket here. First, starting out with the first 4 games. First, we have Indiana versus Nevada, and I am going to go with Indiana in this one. I do like both those programs. Both those programs were good programs last year. Nevada and both these teams kind of came up empty-handed in the March Madness, but those two are good programs. I'm still going to go with Indiana, though. And then Texas Southern, I do think, beats Sacred Heart. Over here, Michigan, Xavier, give me the Wolverines in that matchup. And then Howard, Morehead State, I'm going to go with Morehead State, not Howard, right there. Okay, so first matchup here, we have Kansas, Texas Southern. Texas Southern always seems to be the 16 seed, but I do think they'll lose to Kansas there. UCLA versus Virginia, an 8 seed versus a 9 seed. I'm going to go with UCLA, the 8 seed in that one. San Diego State, I think will fall to Bradley. I just don't think the San Diego State's the same team as they were last season. Bradley, really good program right there out of the I forgot their conference, what it was called, but really good program out of their conference. With a lot of solid teams in there. There was Belmont in there. Some other teams, I believe Illinois State, that there were some good teams in there last season. And this season, I expect it to be the same. So give me Bradley in a win. Miami I do think will beat Grand Canyon there. Illinois versus Providence, a 6 seed versus an 11 seed. Oh, I believe that was Drake's conference too. Yeah, Drake in that conference. Maybe Belmont was in a different one. Yeah, I got Belmont and Drake mixed up. I believe Drake's in that conference. So they're both never mind. Okay, so yeah. Anyway, moving on, Illinois Providence. I'm going to go with another upset, the Classic 11 versus a 6 seed. Providence, good program. Illinois, also a good program, but I don't trust them in that matchup. Give me Providence. Texas A&M, I do think beats UNC Wilmington. Florida Atlantic versus Indiana, 7 versus a 10 seed. I am going to go with Indiana. So we have the San Diego State team, a Florida Atlantic team, both going down here in this round. Unfortunately, those two teams had incredible runs last season, but they're both going to lose in the first round according to my predictions. And then Creighton, I do think, beats Wright State. Moving on down here, we have Arizona versus McNeese State. Give me Zona. TCU, Clemson. Give me the 8-seeded TCU. Kentucky, as good as I like Yale, I don't think Yale is going to go to Kentucky or beat Kentucky in that one. Michigan State, I do think could be an upset alert. UNC Greensboro, good team, but I am going to go with Michigan State. Colorado Dayton, interesting 6 versus 11 seed. I do think Colorado at this point is a little bit overrated. Give me the Flyers of Dayton, another 11 seed upset. That's 2 here. Dayton, the Flyers upset the Buffaloes of Colorado. And then moving on, we have Gonzaga beating Weber State. Villanova versus Northwestern. Give me Northwestern in that game. Really solid program. I'm not quite sold on this Villanova team quite yet, so give me Northwestern. And then Houston, I do think, beats South Dakota State. All right. Purdue versus Morehead State. Give me the Boilermakers. Oregon, I do think, beats Iowa State. USC, I think, falls to James Madison. Why not go with the red-hot James Madison team who's proven that they can upset some top teams this season with Michigan State? USC still needs Bronny James to come back. I don't know how big of an impact he's going to do, but Boogie Ellis, obviously a big piece, but I do think this USC team could lose in the first round, especially if they going against a really good James Madison team. So that's where I'm seeing the James Madison upset perspective there. Alabama, I do think, beats Akron. Auburn versus Michigan, a 6 versus an 11 seed. I do think Auburn ultimately comes out ahead in that one. Baylor, I do think, beats Colgate. Arkansas, I think, beats Ohio State, and Marquette beats Eastern Kentucky. All right, Tennessee, Iona. Give me the Volunteers in that one. Wisconsin, Kansas State. I am going to go with the 9-seeded Kansas State. North Carolina, I do think, beats Liberty. That one could be another upset, but not going to go quite against North Carolina there. Give me Texas over UC Irvine. I'm going to go with another 11-seed upset. Call me a homer, but I'm going to go with the Cougars. We've had a good start to this year, and I'm just not a believer in Mississippi State, especially when it comes to March Madness. So give me BYU in that one. And then Duke, I do think, beats Vermont. Memphis versus Florida, a 7-seed versus a 10-seed. I am going to go with Memphis. And then UConn, I do think, beats UNC Asheville. Okay, for a spot in the Sweet 16, here we have Kansas versus UCLA. I am going to go with the 1-seeded Jayhawks in that one. Miami, I do think, can beat Bradley, hold them off. Texas A&M versus Providence. Give me the 3-seeded Texas A&M. And then Creighton, I do think beats Indiana. So with all the chaos, an 11 seed, a 10 seed, a 12 seed, it's going to be the top 4 seeds in the Sweet 16 in that region. Then Arizona versus TCU. I'm going to go with Arizona, but that's a good rematch of that 1 versus 8 seed matchup we saw a couple of years ago in the round of 32. Kentucky versus Michigan State, a 4 seed versus a 5 seed. I do trust Kentucky more at this point with Michigan State struggles. Gonzaga just barely lost to Purdue this weekend. I am still going to go with the Bulldogs, though. And then Houston versus Northwestern, a 2 seed versus a 10 seed. Give me Houston. So not much upsets besides a 5/4. That's about it in this round of 32. Don't see one there, though. Purdue, I do think, beats Oregon. Alabama will fall to James Madison. Give me James Madison to advance on past the Crimson Tide, who I'm not the biggest believer in. Give me James Madison. Auburn, Baylor, a 6 seed versus a 3 seed. Give me Auburn. I'm feeling an upset there. That's the only 6 seed, I believe, that moved on to the round of 32. So give me Auburn. Why not Baylor? Interesting team. They're iffy, I think. But I think they lose in the round of 32 for back-to-back seasons. And then Marquette, I do think, beats Arkansas in that one. Then down here we have Tennessee versus Kansas State, 1 seed versus a 9 seed. Give me Tennessee. Texas, North Carolina, interesting game. I am going to go with the 4-seeded Texas, though. I'm not going to go that much into BYU. Give me Duke in that one. And then UConn versus Memphis, a 10 seed versus a 7 seed. 2 seed versus 7 seed. Give me UConn. Okay, so we have not the most upsets. I just haven't seen many upset opportunities in this round of 32 than I normally do. So we'll see if we can see any here. Kansas, Miami, a Miami team who's red hot right now, I do think will come up short against Kansas. But that one would be a good one if we see that one in the tournament. Texas A&M versus Creighton, 3-seeded team versus a 2 seed. Really 2 good programs right there. But I am gonna go with Creighton, I think. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Blue Jays just barely in that one, but that one's another really good matchup. So top 2 seeds there. Arizona, I do think holds off Kentucky, and then Gonzaga, Houston. I gotta go with Houston, the team who I picked to win my championship in the last week's video. So 2 1-seed versus 2-seed matchups. That is wild. I just don't see any upset opportunities, like I mentioned. Purdue and James Madison, as much as I want to pull up, I got to go with some crazy upsets. Give me James Madison. I said this in the last one. Pick Drake to beat Purdue. Purdue is the most team that if they play a 12 seed or a something in this tournament, I think they would get upset because that's just the most Purdue thing to do in the tournament is lose to a double-digit seed. If they play single-digit seeds, they might all the way. Besides that 16 seed, I don't think they're going to lose again to them. They might go all the way. But if they play a double-digit seed, I'm not going to pick a 16 seed to win. I'm going to go with them. So give me James Madison. Why the frick not? History's just proven that Purdue struggled against those teams. And then Auburn versus Marquette, a 2 seed versus a 6 seed. Marquette will move on. So we have 3 2 seeds, 2 1 seeds. So all of the 2 seeds so far have moved on. We'll see if that can continue with Duke, UConn. Tennessee, Texas, though. I do think Tennessee moves on as the 1 seed. And then Duke versus UConn. I am going to go with UConn, maybe? I got to have at least 1 2 seed fall in this round. UConn, a phenomenal run last year, but again, history's proven that it's just very rare for a team to win back-to-back, let alone get past the round of 32, even the Sweet 16. I am going to go with Duke in that one, who's a really good team. Okay, in the Elite Eight, we have Kansas versus Creighton. 1 seed versus a 2 seed. I'm going to go with the Blue Jays of Creighton this time to move on to the Final Four there. Arizona versus Houston. I believe these two met in our last week's video. But give me Arizona this time. I'm going to flip it up. Give me the Wildcats to move on to the Final Four. And then we got James Madison versus Marquette. I do think that the James Madison run will come to an end and give me the Golden Eagles. So 2 Big East teams into the Final Four here. Tennessee versus Duke, 1 seed versus a 3 seed. The next 1 seed will fall. Give me the Blue Devils to upset Tennessee in the Elite Eight. So we have 2 2 seeds, 1 3 seed, and 1 1 seed. That's pretty even with all the chalk that we've had since the round of 32. But anyway, Arizona versus Creighton, 1 seed versus a 2 seed. I'm going to go with the Blue Jays. Give me the Blue Jays to move on here. The final 1 seed loses. We will not have a 1 seed winning this time. Marquette versus Duke, a 2 seed versus a 3 seed. Give me the Blue Devils to move on to the national championship game where we will see Creighton, Duke. I do believe this is the Blue Jays' year, a very good program to win the national championship. Give me Creighton to have another Big East champion this season. But yeah, anyway, guys, crazy video. Hopefully y'all enjoyed it. Comment down below your opinions and your predictions. Anyway, guys, peace out.